everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Get Wealth podcast. So today I have here Sophia Willets, commercial broker, investor, kind of doing everything under the sun when it comes to real estate and doing it at a high level. So I'm excited to have you on the show and kind of get into your story and what you're doing now.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate the introduction. I'm Sophia Willets. I'm broker owner of Grace CRE. I specialize in multifamily. Not only am I a broker, but I'm also a full-time investor as well. And I've been doing this since 2013, being a specialist in multifamily. And I was also raised by an immigrant that owned apartments when I was a little kid. My dad got his first apartments, I think, when he was 36 years old. So he retired at 36, actually.
Wow, that's awesome. So what got you into the game? Was it being a broker first? Obviously, you kind of grew up around that. When did you kind of just jump in yourself?
I went through a lot of different job experiences. Being raised by an immigrant, which is my dad. He was brought up in World War II. He was brought up with pretty much nothing, adopted out in the war. So he's very frugal. So he had probably the biggest impact on my life. And I thought we were poor growing up. We weren't, just, that's how I was raised. So my dad definitely had a lot of hard love on me. And like, if I didn't finish my cereal in the morning, he had to wait it for me for dinner. We didn't waste anything. We didn't have AC in our house because that was a luxury. We didn't have AC in our cars or anything like that. So he just fixed banger cars and that sort of stuff. And he go dumpster diving to fix his apartment. So like, that's how I was raised. So I've started doing sales when I was 12. I started selling candy door to door. I've had over 35 jobs. I've always been very successful in sales. I've always just been out there hustling, trying to make that money. And so I got into real estate, I'd say like when I was 20. I got my very first house when I was 20 years old, and I was working at a camera shop. I thought I was a big time person, making $35,000 a year when I was 21. I'm 39 now, but I was like really excited about that. And I had, my first 1998 BMW, and I just thought I was like on cloud nine. I thought I was very successful. But when I bought my first house at 133,000, 35 grand doesn't, that's still not it's not a lot of money. So I rented out every single one of my rooms to roommates. I even rented out my laundry room. So I was cash flowing in my 20s with my first piece of real estate. And I just didn't want to rent. I never rented before ever in my life. So, especially being raised by an investor. Flash forward, I got into doing furniture sales, and then I met my ex-husband at that time, and I just started buying a bunch of real estate because the market was all hyped up. And this is the time when I was a wannabe investor. So I would borrow like all this money from the lenders, and they gave me like money off of like a napkin. They're like, oh, we'll just give you this money for this property. And during this time, my dad was in my ear, and he's like, don't buy real estate, it's going to crash. I'm like, oh, Papa, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. Well, I lost my ass on everything. So I was $1 million in debt at 24. I had to file bankruptcy. I lost 3 properties, had to get rid of my cars. At the house, my ex-husband had a time I got a loan modification because every time I made a payment, I owed more money. So that was a big wake-up call of reality. I didn't know what I was doing, but, and I didn't want to listen to my dad. So he sold his apartments in 2006, and I was just buying houses at the time. So I just thought I could make money, but unfortunately I didn't. And I'm happy I learned this experience, and I'm happy I learned this experience being younger, losing everything when I was super young, because it was important that invaluable lesson that I needed to learn. So fast forward, I had 2 kids. I had a 2.5-year-old and a 5-month-old when I started real estate in 2013. I was just doing hair. I was making $17,000 a year. I went from $65,000 a year to $17,000 a year. So this is like not so great in like 2012, 2010, like we were putting groceries on credit cards. I was struggling. but I wanted to be a good mom for my kids so I could be there for them. And so one day I was sitting at the salon I was working at, and I had $343 in my 401k, and I looked and I was like, I'm fucked. I basically cannot support myself for the rest of my life. I'm like, I'm going to be basically living paycheck to paycheck. And so I was like, you know what? I've always loved looking at real estate when I was at the furniture store. And I'm like, maybe I should get my real estate license. So I told my ex-husband about it. We didn't have the money for it at the time. We were really poor. And he's like, it's not the right time. And I told him it's never going to be the right time. And so I cried, I begged, I pleaded. I made him take out a loan out of his 401k. I found somebody off of Craigslist to babysit my kids because I couldn't find regular daycare because I couldn't afford it. So I paid like $20 to $25 a day per kid. And then I didn't have enough breast milk, so I had to buy breast milk off of Craigslist. I was pretty desperate to make something happen for our family. It was basically like a gun to my head because like I didn't want to have to ask for money or beg for money from anybody. And I wanted to show like the world that I could actually do it.
Wow.
And especially my kids. And so I got into my license within 6 weeks. And then I went and interviewed a bunch of different brokers, and I started at SG Fowler Real Estate, which was a small, they did apartments and they also did houses and they did other stuff. But at the time I was like, that's more recession proof because I've already been through that recession. I'm like, I don't want to be stuck in just only selling one type of real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to work for them, and I made my first transaction happen in the first 10 days. I sold a 4-plex, and then I sold 24 buildings my first year. And my ex-husband saw me doing really well, so he quit and then never went back to work again. So everything fell on me. And it was not healthy or anything like that. So I ended up being the mom, the breadwinner, the everything. It definitely didn't end up being such a healthy situation. So obviously we're not together anymore.
Well, I mean, it's obvious there's this underlying factor that you've had throughout the whole thing is that you're always going to the next, you're never just sitting and, oh, well, I guess it didn't work out. I mean, there's like 4 different times there you said where you had to like overcome a pretty big obstacle that would probably put most people at idle. And then I was also going to mention, I've had a few people on the podcast that are like uber successful, like David Meltzer and Tim Bratz, these guys that own almost billions of dollars. And a lot of them have that story where they just lost everything. Like they got to the point where they're hundreds of millions of dollars and then they lose it all. It's almost like that's an ingredient to getting to like the really high level. Do you think if you wouldn't have had that huge reset, it would be different now? Or do you think you would have just, figured it out either way?
So I wouldn't actually know how to answer that question. I think what it did was it just, the reset on like just starting over again, like just made me want to settle and think smaller. I was trying to fit in with like my ex-husband's family and everyone else and my family, thinking really small, except my dad, like very small-minded. And it's a pattern that you need to break. You have to break your family curses because nobody's going to do it for you. So my dad was that entrepreneur, made shit happen. Like, but for me personally, if I would have just stayed on like my mom's path or like my ex-husband's path, he used to criticize me. He's like, you can't work for anybody else. Oh, they'll fire you. And I'm like, well, I don't want to have to work for somebody else. Like he would actually bring me down to his level because he couldn't be like me, which was good. Instead of building me up, he'd just tear me down or call me a nothing C or a B and all these other things because like he couldn't have that power over me, like because like I didn't need him. And I think that really affected our dynamics at home.
Yeah, it's a weird thing when you're working with other people and their own mindset and limitations. It's kind of hard to, especially the entrepreneurial mind, because you kind of have to be somewhat different than most of people because it's inherently just going to be more risk and more uncomfortable and more hard work. And the reality of it is most people are just not cut out for it. It's just not their mindset. And so you almost have to balance it in a way? Do you think you have to you have to associate yourself with people that are like-minded, or is there a way to kind of balance that where you just have to know you're different and ignore the comments?
You know what, I don't like, it just depends if they're your family or not, because like the people that do surround themselves with me and they want to change their lives, they want something better for themselves. I've always been very inspirational to people, like believing in them, getting out of your own head. You ever hear the phrase, you're in your own head, you're dead? You got to get out of there and actually think from your heart and create something that actually happened for yourself, because nobody's going to do it for you. You actually have to have the courage and actually get it done, and actually have the courage to actually do something that nobody else is doing, because I don't want to be like anybody else. Like, I don't want to compare myself to anybody else. I just want to help serve like people in a different light, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And so did you always think of real estate as the way to do that, or was there other like startups, or how did you get to real estate?
No, I just, I built my own little salon in my garage. And then when I couldn't even cover to have the kids like actually be watched as I did hair, because like this is before like extensions, like I have extensions or like a thing, like I spend about, it's crazy, about $3,000 like every 6 weeks on my hair. I'm very particular. It has to be a certain way.
Yeah.
Like I don't have like the natural beautiful voluminous hair, but like at the time, in that time, like extensions were not all that popular. So a color and cut, I was like $100, but by the time you're done and finished and pay somebody, I made like $30 to watch my kids. So like my break even point, I was like, ooh, I'm paying for this salon. Ooh, I'm like, I'm not breaking even. And then like I would try to like have my kids in the salon with me when I'm trying to do hair. A baby and a toddler, it doesn't work. They're screaming the whole time and crying. They're like, mom, it doesn't work. So
yeah. Okay. So then it was just kind of the obvious thing was go to real estate. That's where the money's at.
Yeah, definitely the real estate, because I didn't have a choice. Like I didn't see any other things except real estate. That's the only other thing I was really passionate about. Just seeing my dad's success too. And my dad only made it through the 5th grade, like you have to be really street smart. I barely passed high school. I don't have a college degree. I barely could pass my real estate exam, but I'm really good at reading contract law and like actually having the experience with the transactions now. But, just because you don't have like a great education doesn't mean that you can't be the most successful in your industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, totally. You see that all the time. It's almost like the outliers are on the opposite side of the scale of being like underqualified or whatever, the Steve Jobs, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny how that works out, because I don't know what the correlation there would be, but maybe it's just the going against the grain thing.
Yeah, so I'm an artist. I can draw really well. I can draw like Disney. I've always been super like out there and creating stuff in my head and everything, and just like trying to be like something that nobody else is like, because I have never been able to fit in, and I'm okay with that. I used to think that was a bad thing until as I've gotten older, I realized like I don't want to be like anybody else.
Right. Okay. So you started being a commercial realtor. What was getting your first deal like, your education process? You kind of just jump into the deep end and start marketing and finding leads, or what was that process like?
Well, for me, I was so desperate. Like I had to make money. It was like against the clock. So we had to make those payments towards the draw that we did for his 401. So my first deal I got was a LoopNet lead from my broker, and his name was Brian. He actually worked for me. A lot of my clients actually work for me. It's kind of weird. But anyways, so he it was a LoopNet lead. So he was looking for a fourplex. It was 210 East Howe. It's in Tempe. It was a little fourplex I sold for 210. Just keep this in mind. Like in 2013, like fourplexes were like 150 to 200, maybe 250 if you're lucky. The same fourplexes I'm selling for like 1.5 to 2.5 million. So just from 2013. So it is really changed a lot. So, but with that being said, like it's just 90 hours of school, and a lot of people will spend thousands and thousands of dollars on like learning how to do real estate, not having your license and blah, 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 blah. If they just get their license for $500, they have all the tools that they actually really need. They don't they don't need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on all these self-educated stuff. It's unnecessary. If people just actually knew just to get their license, their life would be so much better.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Okay. And then when did it transition into you buying the deals and holding multifamily?
So I met with this guy named Sean Wade, and I sold his three fourplexes in Old Town Scottsdale back in late 2018. And he was part of this group called Renatas, and he's like, I educate people. It's like a $20,000 membership, and they teach people how to do real estate. And I'm like, they can just get their license.
Yeah.
But he's like, just come and teach at this event. And I'm like, oh, and like, at the time my husband's like, you should be home with the kids. I'm like, I know, but Sean wants me to do this for him. So I gave back my time, just a little bit of education, teaching people how to do real estate. And somebody at the event brought me a deal, and it was a 7-unit, and it was in Tempe. It was off market. They didn't have the money to do it. So we contacted the owner directly. It happened to be another broker. He's a HomeSmart broker. And he said some wholesalers had hired. We can get the building, and I'm thinking like transactional, like I had for years. And I'm like, I can get a 3% commission on this. This is great. And then I was like, 20,000. Okay, wait a second. I keep on finding all these off-market deals and deals for all these people, giving my deals away. And I'm like, me and my husband were talking. This is my new husband. Okay, not my ex.
Okay.
We're like, we should buy it. So I'm actually in this office space, my brand new office space that we're closing on. We're supposed to close on it Friday, but the certificate of occupancy hasn't cleared yet. But we're closing on it this week. But we were actually looking at this office space shell condition at the time. The same time we're looking at this 7-unit, and at the time the office space was 500,000, and all I had after my divorce was about 200,000. That's all I had to show for all the transactions, and the money I made is like, it was just like the walk in shame, starting all over again, new marriage, new problems, all that shit. Like, it's like, oh my God. And I was like, we just started Grace, and I'm like, I really want a space in Scottsdale. I want to be next to the Valley House. There's a Valley House. It's right there.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
And I'm like, it's such a cool place. And, like, I didn't have enough money to buy it because I had a construction cost and all this stuff. And so I took that $200,000 I had, and I bought that 7-unit, and all I did was take pictures. I closed on it, and 6 weeks later we closed on it again, and I made $375,000 on one transaction. I was like, I don't need this office space anymore. I'm going to start flipping. I'm like, man, why wasn't I flipping before? But I had that trauma from when I was in my early 20s not to buy real estate again. I'm like, nope, just transactions. Nope, just transactions. I could have close to 40 million if I would have partnered up on all the deals when I first started. I just was too scared. And, now I finally have the courage to do it again, but it took me almost 6-7 years being in the business to reinvest again. So like, having the courage to know, but like, I knew my niche really well. And then now I have it down to a system where I now have been able to create my own comps. Like, I just sold a complex in November. It's never been done before here in Old Town Scottsdale. I bought it for $220 a door. I put about 75 in, and I just sold it for $575 each a unit. That's crazy. And they're only 900 square foot units. So I've been able to create the flips and everything that I wanted. I've grown my 200,000 into about 6 million from just my investments. And then I'm also not paying taxes because I'm doing a self-directed pension plan. I'm doing a self-directed 401k. If you're licensed, you can do those things without having to worry about 1031 exchanges. I can pay myself a commission on my deal and not get penalized for it. There's so many different ways that you can make money with real estate if you're licensed, but a lot of people just don't see that or know about it.
That's interesting. So let's talk about doing a flip on a commercial property. I imagine it's a lot different than a single family, because with commercial, you value it completely different, right? So are you like adding units? Are you renovating?
I haven't added any units yet.
Mhm.
A lot of times I'll just do a cosmetic or a
Okay.
complete gut job. It really just depends. Right now I have a 16 units in Old Town Scottsdale that are gut jobs. I'm putting about 300,000 per building in. And then I have a sixplex that we just bought, and all we did was take pictures and sold it within the next day. We're making 400,000 on that one. And then we have a 53 unit with my other partner, Jamil, right now, that my husband got for us. And that one, we're just going to retrade it immediately. And that one has like anywhere from a 2.5 to about a $5 million spread for doing nothing.
Holy smokes, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So are you're using hard money then, or
I use
cash,
either
or?
hard money or bridge financing.
Okay.
I don't do conventional. It's a waste of my freaking time.
Yeah, totally.
And people like focus on the interest rates. Yes, you should if you're holding, but if you're not, and you're just repositioning the property, because like I personally, in my opinion, and I hope I'm wrong, that I feel like our market's going to take a huge shit in like the next 6 months to 12 months. I'm preparing for that winter. I know that my flipping season is going to be coming to an end shortly. I can't be like, oh, it's going to go on forever. No.
Right. Really
like,
slow down.
I've seen the cycles, and the interest rates will have an effect on our cap rates, people's not net operating income, all that stuff will come into place. But as of right now, I just use money as a tool, and I use my apartments as a tool as well.
Yeah. So when you're doing a flip, then are you comparing it to properties that are similar units or similar cash flow?
You know, to a certain extent, I actually create my own comps. And the way I do that is I actually buy in certain locations, make them look a certain way, make them look like California, something beautiful, white, seafoam doors, gorgeous floors, the waterfall edge, countertops, backyards, make it more like a home versus an apartment. And then I put in a short-term tenant that guarantees the lease. They can't claim COVID. They pay all utilities. So like my last one I did on Parkway, I charged $2,800, and then they paid for everything. And if anything happened to the property, it was there on them as well. So it's almost like renting to a retail triple net tenant versus like renting to a tenant. It's dependent on a job. So for me, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so what's your primary lead generation? Are you doing it like direct mail, or you mentioned you're a realtor, so you obviously probably get leads from that. What's kind of the lifeblood?
Okay, so my primary source of leads, so I have a small team. I do 7,000 mailers a month. So you can't be knocking on apartment door owners. Most of everybody's out of state. I sell my buildings over the phone. I very rarely meet people. So I can tell somebody's value in like typically about 30 seconds or less.
Yeah.
So like, well, people are actually trying to underwrite a deal and try to make sense. I've already put an offer on and made it happen because I actually understand our numbers that fast.
Because you've looked at so many of them.
Yeah. I do about 80 to 90 transactions a year, and then I'll do about 8 to 10 of them myself.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay. And then so the direct mail, you send out 7,000 and it's just you inbound calls and you're picking up the phone.
Yeah, I get inbound calls. I just picked up a 16 unit that's never been listed, and the guy built them with his own hands, and he's from Greece, and it's in Chandler. It's never been listed before. So that's going live today, actually.
That's so cool. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
How is it talking with those leads compared to a single family lead? Because I imagine you're working with kind of a different type of person, right?
I'm happy to do a role play with you.
Oh man. Okay, go. I'll be the seller.
Okay, so you're gonna own let's just say you own a fourplex in Scottsdale.
Okay.
And you bought it for 300,000.
Okay, ring ring. Hello.
Okay, hi, this is Sophia. How can I help?
Hey, I got your mailer. You're interested in buying my fourplex?
Oh, awesome. How's it going today?
I'm doing good.
Awesome. May I ask who I'm speaking with?
My name's Brennan Wiersma.
Oh, hi. Are you calling in or out of state? My light went out.
I am out of state, I think you said I am.
Oh, okay, perfect. Are you calling from Newport?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. So you said you owned a fourplex?
Yeah, I do. I'm thinking about selling it. I got some tenants there that are having some legal issues and I just don't want to deal with it.
Oh, okay. Is it professionally managed right now?
It's actually not. I've kind of got my hands full.
Oh, so how are you doing that from out of state? Like, do you have a family member here that's been trying to rent the units for you, or how are you handling that?
A little bit of both. I have a realtor that'll help me out, but it's a little bit confusing. Nothing really on
Oh, okay.
paper.
Well, let me go ahead and pull up your property. So I'm going to do like an example.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm going to. Okay. So I'm just going to pretend that I'm going to pull up a fourplex and this is it. Okay. So I can see that it's here on 66th Street. Is that correct?
Yep, that's mine.
Okay, perfect. And then I see that you purchased it back for 300,000. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And then what are you currently collecting right now for your tenants?
About 1,200 a door.
Okay, perfect. And are they all twos like it shows still as it describes?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then are your tenants month to month?
Yes.
Okay, so that's good. What I would recommend is not renewing your leases if you're thinking about selling, because that is not our market rent right now. The average market rent right now in your area is anywhere from $1,800 up to $2,500, which is a huge improvement, obviously from $1,200. When did you sign those $1,200 leases?
That was actually 4 months ago.
Oh, okay. But you haven't renewed them, right?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I would just leave it at that because the next investor is going to want to get a better return. Do you have any idea where the marketplace is so far that you've been checking on?
I actually haven't. I'm kind of in the dark. I'm not
Okay.
very experienced.
Okay, perfect. Well, I can definitely go over that with you. I have a couple more questions to ask you. Do you have leased laundry equipment or do you actually have seller owned like washer and dryers, or do you at least have hookups?
Yeah, I have hookups, but they're seller owned.
Okay, perfect. And then do you have covered parking?
Yes.
Okay, and are your units separately metered for water, sewer, and trash, or just electric?
Electric.
Okay, do you have gas on your property?
I do.
Okay, and are the tenants paying for that, or is that separately?
The tenants cover that.
Okay, perfect. And then have you done any major capital expenditures to your property, like new roof, like new windows, any type of like exponential things like the new modern kitchens, that sort of stuff, any exterior paint, landscaping, like any type of major capital expenditures you've done recently to your property?
One of them, we recently remodeled the kitchen, but that's about it. One of them, they had a dog and it chewed up the door. So we're working on some cosmetic things.
Okay, perfect. And then the other units, what about those?
Nothing more with the other units.
When were the last units updated? Are they like original classic, like it shows like 1960s, or are they like updated in like in the early 2000s?
They're around the 1960s still.
Okay, so this needs a full reno.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, what about your sewer lines? Are they orange birch or have they been replaced, or do you know?
I actually have no idea.
Okay, so that are gonna be things like when it goes to like selling your property, those are things that are gonna be checked. So just kind of keep that in mind, especially if they're still like, they haven't been touched in 1960s, they're probably gonna have to, everything's probably gonna have to be replaced, which would be a good thing potentially for you if you're looking to sell, so you don't have to put in the capital expenditure right now. And then do you have private yards for your units?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And then tell me about your current job. Like, are you self-employed right now? Are you working for somebody else?
Yeah, I am self-employed. I own a car washing business.
That's awesome. So based off of like, I just want to do some math with you real quick, just to kind of get where you're going. Have you ever heard of a 1031 exchange?
Yeah, I've heard of that. Isn't that in the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book? People talk about that.
Well, I'm going to give you just a quick little lesson so that way we can make sure that you stay rich and not go poor. So one big thing when it comes to doing something like a 1031 exchange, it's extremely important to understand like Did you buy it with an exchange or did you just buy it?
I just bought it straight up.
Okay, so you bought it for 300,000 and you, it looks like you've owned it for about 12 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna take 80%. So you got $240,000. You've been depreciating over. Oh, and just something you should know about multifamily, unlike commercial, even if it's 5 units and above or 2 or 3, 4 units, no matter how many units it is, you can depreciate the asset over 27.5 years versus commercial where it's 39.5. So that's a big reason why like 401ks, life insurance policies buy apartments because it can depreciate a lot faster. So yeah, so this one's 240, right? Because I'm taking 20% away from the land. And then I'm going to divide that by 27.5 years, and that's 8727. Now I'm just giving guesstimates, okay? You're going to still have to talk to your tax specialist or your CPA. And I'm going to times that by 12 years. So they're going to recapture $104,000 in write-offs, okay? And based off of where the current market is and what I can see your property's condition is, it's worth about 1.4 million right now. So if I were you, especially since it's just a fourplex, you'll have a much better chance of getting the highest and best sales price if you list it. I have been able to net the highest and best sales price actually listing it because I'm unlike most commercial brokers actually offer full co-brokes. Nobody else in the business that actually does that. They keep all the listings in-house. I don't do that. I put the seller's needs first versus like my commission. I could care less about it. So I want to make sure that you get the best, highest net sales price versus just trying to keep it in-house. I sell both sides and then you net less. So that's just something you should keep in mind when it comes to like advertising your property. I also don't let anybody see the property. They have to show proof of funds. We don't let people walk it. We don't want your tenants being disturbed and disturbing your business or anything like that. There's no sign, none of that stuff. So I only work with qualified people or professionals in our industry to make sure you net the best possible sales price upfront. So that way you don't waste your time. So after that, so let's just say we sell for 1.4. We'll do at least a 5% commissions, 2.5% on each side. So that's 70,000. So you got 1.4. And then if you do a 1031 exchange, it's going to cost you about anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 plus your title insurance and all the deposits that your tenants have paid for. And then your taxes are also paid in arrears here in Arizona. So like, I like to just factor in a higher side. So that way, like I'm covered, you're covered, and we're all good. And what debt do you owe on the property right now?
I owe about $10,000 left.
Okay, perfect. So you're almost debt free.
Almost.
Okay, so 1.4, and we're gonna minus, let's just say 100,000 in closing costs, just like a 70,000 commission, and there's title, taxes, insurance, all the other stuff, and then maybe there's a credit at close. Let's just be very conservative. It could be a lot more. I still need to go out and check out your property to kind of really narrow down the numbers, but let's just be conservative. So you're at 1.3. So 1.3 and ordinary income tax. What's your tax bracket?
I'm actually in the bottom bracket.
Okay, so this is going to change a bit once you sell up to 1.3. Okay.
Okay.
So let's just say you have like about a 25% gain to 35% gain. If it's a 25% gain, that's 325,000 you'll pay in taxes. Plus you have that other recapture of 105,000, which will be another about 27,000 on top of that. So like 350 to 375 in taxes. Or you can take that money and reposition it into a larger property and then have a bigger tax shelter versus your only tax shelter was like about 240. Now, if you like reposition that money that you're going to net into a much bigger building, let's just say, for example, you have with like a 1.3 million net, you could go like double that. You could go to like maybe $2.5 to $3 million worth of multifamily. And then you times that by 80%, that's 2.4. And now your new depreciation on $3 million, especially you being like a business owner and you want as many write-offs as possible. And that's why so many people own apartments that way. So you divide that by 27.5 years. So instead of you only depreciating $8,000 a year, now you're depreciating $87,000 a year. And that doesn't even include debt service that you get, because you get to write that whole thing off too. So you're going to be losing money with apartments and not actually like paying taxes at the year, because that's why people always like trade up their apartment buildings, if that makes sense. That's how you build that long-term wealth versus like holding or having something debt-free. It doesn't make sense. Have your money work harder for you, because you're losing money as soon as that hits your bank account, unfortunately.
Yeah. Now, could you help me find another project to invest in?
Absolutely. I'm definitely really good at that. And I also do a lot of off-market properties as well.
Alrighty. Where do I sign?
Okay.
That was
That's my
awesome.
phone call.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's like you're establishing your credibility as you're taking them through the process, because you're asking the important details and making sure that all the bases are covered. So,
I don't ever want to put somebody in a situation. I don't believe in win-wins.
Really?
No, I don't. I believe in serving and helping for the right reasons. I couldn't sleep at night and be like, I left some money on I got extra money and this guy didn't know about it. Or like, oh, I got both sides and I didn't want to broadcast it to everybody else out there because I knew I would get paid on both ends. Or I buy the property directly with the owner and be like, oh, the property's only worth this. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I could not sleep at night.
Yeah.
My reputation means everything to me, and I don't want to be that person out in the marketplace, especially as a female. Like, it's very cutthroat in my industry, and 99% of everyone I work with are men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that probably helps your business because you establish that reputation, and then people trust you. And maybe in the short term, you miss out on not stealing, but you know what I mean, taking that extra value. But in the long term, then you get a lot more repeat clients and things like that.
It's better that way for me, but that's who I am inside. That's my character.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to like financially have a gain on somebody else. Like, I don't need to do that. I'm in a very good position where I don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah. It helps to be at that level too, where, you don't have to worry about making ends meet and being in that starvation mindset, because that gives you the opportunity to lead with the value part of it to the other person, because you're not worried about, your basic needs. And so you can, provide it on that side of things.
Yes.
With regards to the commercial real estate or multifamily deals, where do you see the biggest upside is to investing in multifamily versus in single family? Because obviously you do mostly multi, right?
I primarily just do multi, but I will sell like right now I'm in contract on 2 houses.
Okay. So do you have an opinion over one versus the other?
They're both really good assets. It depends on people's outlook right now. Right now, multifamily's gotten as expensive as houses. So a lot of multifamily doesn't necessarily make sense right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been actually turning some people into houses right now because some of the returns are actually higher.
Mm-hmm.
It really just depends. But if there's some value add apartments or there's an apartment building that's under rent, then we're able to get at a good value.
Yeah. Where do you see some of the opportunity coming up with a recession that you mentioned? Is that going to be more?
I think it's going to affect the housing market, not as much as apartments. I think it's going to make the apartments actually stronger because people are going to be more apt to rent. They'll have to. And if you think about it, the people that like those big hedge funds, those stocks, they're buying a lot of our single family homes. They want to eliminate the middle class. They do not want people to be able to buy a house anymore. That's another reason why we're in this situation. Yeah. Which sucks. It's not cool. Don't like it.
Yeah. How do you think that plays out? Because I hear stats like they're going to own a third of all.
It's happening whether we want it to happen or not. And that's how they're able to get rid of a lot of those big gains with those hedge funds and stock markets. And a lot of people don't realize those high interest rates, like a lot of the stock market like is actually buying a lot of that. The bond market, they said, oh, it's safe. Well, they're actually buying like mortgage-backed securities, and not everybody's going to be able to afford to pay for everything. So I feel like our 401ks are oh, it's in the stock market, but they're actually tied to the mortgage-backed securities, which is the first time they've been doing this, which scares the crap out of me, because as interest rates are going up and like our paychecks are not necessarily going up, not only are they going to lose their homes, but they're also going to lose their entire 401ks as well. But they don't talk about this on the news.
Wasn't that kind of exactly what happened in 2008 as far as the subprime
No,
mortgages?
actually everything got covered up and all the debt never went away.
Okay.
There was no bailout. There's really no bailout. All they did was bundle up more bad debt, and that debt never went away. That's why people say this is not going to be a recession. It's going to be a depression.
Mm.
And our value of our dollar is so like pretty much worthless. There's that book, I forgot the name of it. It was like The New World Order. You should watch the video on that and read the book. It's pretty scary what's happening.
Yeah, because a lot of it, I mean, to the average person, it's pretty much out of your control as far as what these.
You're absolutely right. It is absolutely out of your control, but that doesn't mean that you should be helpless. You got to help yourself.
Yeah.
You can help yourself with the right assets when it comes to purchasing real estate, something that you know that you can't lose, whether the market goes down or not. The property is still real.
Mm-hmm.
Like I also invest in gold because it's real property. They can't take it away.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like Bitcoin and all this other stuff, yes, Bitcoin is, I don't know a whole lot about it. There is going to be a digital currency reset. Give me 1 second. Let me let my partner in.
Sure.
There is definitely gonna, like, they're gonna make it like where the government will make it their own, and I think it's gonna eliminate Bitcoin. I'm happy I don't have any Bitcoin or like those other types of like NFTs and all the other stuff that's out there. People have gotten scammed, and like I really like real things. Call me old school. I just have been raised differently and I've lost it all. I just don't want to lose it all to a digital illusion, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's some value in having those fundamentals as far as what you do and what works. Then there's the other side of me that's like, you kind of want to move, adapt with the changing times. And as far as
well, the government's going to have their own digital currency. I would just rather wait for the government's, honestly, and not pay for it. Somebody else's, because they're going to just eliminate it. That's my opinion. I'm not telling you I'm right. This is my impression.
That's actually super interesting. I've never thought about the government just making one.
They are making one.
How does that work, and when are they? It's
called the world's currency. How like the dollar is the world's currency right now. It's going to change.
Oh,
There's nothing that backs a dollar. A dollar means $1 means I owe you.
Right.
A dollar. Death. Mm-hmm. And if they can't print the money anymore because they keep on raising the interest rates, then what? If we can't get debt and the banks stop lending, what are we going to do? They're going to force everybody to do a new world currency, and that's going to be digital.
It sounds like a movie, or I don't know.
It's not a movie.
Well, yeah, it's real life.
Yeah,
it's kind of
unfortunately, it's not a movie. I wish it was.
I think in Singapore, they had reverse interest rates.
No, they have that in more than one country. It's not just Singapore.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know
that. It's happening in a lot of places. It's also happening in Canada as well.
Yeah, man, that's wild. So, okay, so yeah, that's kind of what I was getting to. Is it seems like there's all these things going on behind the scenes, and the average person looking at it is like, okay, what do I do? What's your game plan? Is it go get educated on real estate and start locking in your?
You know what? I think self-education is like the best thing. And the cheapest thing you can really do is get your real estate license, and then you'll have the tools to all the unlimited resources that you could possibly use. And I like to be in my niche just because I feel like it's a little bit more recession proof. I'm always going to have investor for the highs and lows no matter what. And people always need somewhere to live.
Okay.
Living in a house is a luxury. It's not a need, but living in an apartment is a must.
Yeah, that's true. That seems like a good hedge against recession, because in my opinion, right now, we're going to start to see change in how people are talking about, because I mean, right now it's a super hot market. Everyone's making money. And I wasn't really, in the game in 2008 or observing what's happening, but it seems like you'll probably see who the real long-term investors are, who can really make it and who is being lifted up by the market. Do you think that's the case? You're going to start to see a lot of that?
We're already seeing it now because the lenders are pulling back on lending.
So yeah, they're
We're
probably
already having problems getting loans right now.
Gotcha. Yeah, it definitely feels like we're at the peak, I guess, for the last year, and now it's kind of, you're starting to see, comparing last year to this year as far as even time on the market, loan applications, things like that. Okay. Let's see. I want to make sure. I wanted to get into buying multifamily. I know some people have had a lot of success with seller financing. It seems like it's a lot more common. Is that something you're an advocate of, or?
Yeah, I've done a lot of seller carrybacks actually, and with apartments, and I'm actually doing the seller carryback for office space, which is really cool.
Yeah. Okay. So are you pitching that to your leads, or is it just kind of working out best that way?
So when I first started in 2013 and 14, I would do like 50 seller carrybacks a year. They were very common.
Oh, wow.
Very, very common. I've even double wraps, double escrows. I've done it all. I've done complicated transactions, but with this one right now, with our timing in our marketplace, I'm starting to see them again, but I haven't seen them in about 2 to 3 years.
Okay. Yeah. Cause, to me, the part that could be helpful is the zero down thing. A lot of times people don't have the money to get into a deal. So if you can negotiate that. There's a guy I want to have on my podcast. We just haven't had the schedules lined up, but his name's Cody. I saw him on the Bigger Pockets. He's got like 81 units, all from seller financing, zero down, which is like crazy. You can do that.
Oh yeah, no, there's definitely ways, and there's different markets. Arizona's probably not a super common market for that, but places in other parts of the nation, definitely.
Okay, well, just kind of wrapping up, a few questions I always like to ask is, what's your definition of wealth? It's a Get Wealth podcast.
So my definition of wealth is where you're able to make money and you're not actually working. So I don't have to be an operator. I can be a true free business owner versus having to show up for work every day. That to me would be the ultimate wealth and freedom.
Yeah. And then does that mean that you necessarily stop working, or just having the ability to?
Just ability to make money without having to work for it.
Yeah.
A residual income.
Yeah.
Cash flow.
I don't know too many other.
Yeah, like cash flow from apartments and other types of businesses, not having all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, totally agree. Do you have any books you recommend for whether it's real estate or just in general?
I think just getting your real estate license is the best self-educated book you could probably buy, because you're going to get it with your course. Yeah. Learning contract law and understanding real estate law, you're not only holding yourself to a higher standard, you're going to feel so much more like a better self-worth than not having your license. It's like, it just takes you to another level, because you're basically like an attorney at law with your own real estate contracts here in our state of Arizona. So same law applies actually in California and in some other states as well too. So like just having that little piece of power that you can actually get a hold of anybody, not have to ask anybody for anything, and actually have the actual education to be able to get pretty much any type of person that you want in the real estate game. Having your license gives you the ability to do that, and the contacts and the resources for that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value. That's something I've went back and forth on, of whether I want to get it, and you're kind of convincing me.
9 days of school.
Yeah.
9 days to do it.
And so I've done a little bit of wholesaling and like one fix and flip, so not a lot, but I've been in it for about a year now.
Depends on what your outcome is. Like for me, like I have other goals right now. I'm actually going to be probably doing 2 TV shows, like one for apartments and then another one with my son. And then I just want to be ready for this winter that's coming. And if I don't like have something else lined up, you know, like besides having my own mentorship and coaching for apartments, teaching people how to like recognize a deal, We're creating a national brand for our brokerage right now. So we have a lot of things in the works right now, because I already see my flipping season coming to an end. So I'm like, okay, now I have to readjust and adapt to the changing market.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just part of the game, right? The market's going to change and you got to change as well. So
Yes.
Well, all right. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I think you packed it with a ton of value. I know I learned a whole bunch. I haven't spent a whole bunch of time learning about commercial or multi real estate. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think you're a great example of that. You've had a lot of success, and I can tell you have a good heart and you're willing to help people. And so I really appreciate you taking the time.
There's one more thing I'd like to add. We're starting a foundation. It's called Home for Grace, and we want to be raising capital and getting grants through the city. We're going to be getting apartments and building apartments for sex trafficking victims. And that's my biggest purpose right now, is to be able to house those victims. And I found out that less than 300 homes in all of the US is available for those type of people, which is terrible. So if I can just add a little bit more like education to people, like we can make like our money matter and like actually provide homes for people that can't provide homes for themselves.
Yeah. Where can people go to get involved, or your social media, everything like that?
Yeah, they can go to my social media. I'm waiting for everything to get approved by the IRS. I started the application process about 2 months ago. So hopefully by the next month, we are actually have our foundation launched.
Got it. All righty. Well, everyone go follow Sophia and donate, help out, get involved, reach out and network.
Yes, and we're going to be throwing an epic pool party. I'll be posting that as well at the Valley Ho. So we're very excited about that.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Congrats on everything. Got a lot of cool things going on.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate you reaching out, and I hope you guys have a kick-ass week.
Thank you. Sophia
All right,
Willets, everybody. Get wealthy.
All right. Bye-bye.